Hello everyone. Welcome to Daily News Decoded initiative of NEXT IAS. Today we will discuss 5 articles from the Hindu and Indian Express newspapers. The first article will talk about Places of Worship Act, which has been in news in recent times due to various issues around us. In the second article, we will talk about Indian Diaspora, which has been in news due to recently held Pravasi Bharatiya Divas in Odisha. In the third article, we will talk about coal mining in Assam. In the fourth article, we will talk about rupee depreciation. And in the fifth article, we will discuss election commissioners' appointment process. So let's start with the first article. The first article talks about Places of Worship Act. Now, what is the backdrop of this particular article? These two cuttings are from your newspapers, Indian Express and The Hindu. Basically, the Supreme Court has recently ordered maintaining the status quo. Now, what is status quo? Status quo means maintaining the existing affairs. So, Supreme Court has recently ordered to maintain the status quo regarding a well near the entrance of Shahi Jama Masjid in Sambal, UP. Right? When we talk about the relevance of this particular topic, which topic? Places of Worship Act 1991. Its relevance is there in your UPSC GS paper 1 mains under the heading of communalism and secularism, and in GS 2 under the tag of governance. Now these two articles which we are showing here are talking about a Sambal case. So basically, when you will read more about these articles, you will understand that the broader perspective is Places of Worship Act 1991. But before understanding Places of Worship Act 1991, it is your duty to also understand what is this Sambal case which has been in news in recent times. These are certain PYQs from your UPSC exams which talked about a similar topic. Maybe not similar, these are not talking about Places of Worship Act 1991, but a similar topic like in mains 2017, UPSC asked about the spirit of tolerance and love is not only an interesting feature of Indian society from very early times, but it is also playing an important part at present. Elaborate. What are the challenges to our cultural practices in the name of secularism? So this was asked in mains 2019. It's my request to you people, if you feel that you are learning from these experiences, such lectures, you should also attempt PYQs that we share. We will also be sharing certain practice questions at the end of this particular discussion. You should practice those questions and attach your PDF in the comment section, where maybe your peers have a look on them and give you some constructive criticism. So before talking about Places of Worship Act 1991, we will discuss what is this Sambal case. Now what is this Sambal case? Basically a petition was filed by Hari Shankar Jain and others in the court of civil judge, district and sessions court. District and Sessions Court, Sambal, when on November 19. So basically what these petitioners alleged, they alleged that this 16th century Jama Masjid, which is there in Sambal, it is built on the site of ancient Harihara Mandir. So this is basically the petition that this particular mosque there in Sambal, it is built on the site of an ancient Harihara temple. This claim was basically similar to Gyanvapi mosque claims in Varanasi. It was similar to Eidgah Masjid, Mathura, UP, and also to Kamal Mola Masjid in Dhar, MP. So these claims which were there in news in recent times, these make this particular topic Places of Worship Act 1991 so important for a discussion, and also important for our GS mains UPSC. Now basically, if we specifically talk about this Sambal mosque in UP, it was built by Mughal Emperor Babur, and this was one of the 3 mosques that was built by Mughal Emperor Babur. The other 2 were in Panipat and this Babri Masjid, which was demolished in 1992. So basically, why this Supreme Court ordered status quo? What happened was, after this petition was made in the Supreme Court, what it did, it asked for a photographic and videographic survey. The first survey went very smoothly. But basically at the time of second survey, it led to violent clashes between two communities. That's why this topic has been in news since over a month. Now when we talk about this Sambal issue, it has cast fresh spotlight on what? It has cast fresh spotlight on Places of Worship Act 1991. Why so? Because basically Places of Worship Act 1991, under which the religious character of any place of worship cannot be changed. The character which was there on 15th August 1947, it has to be maintained as it is. Now we have got the term that we were searching for. What is that? What is Places of Worship Act 1991? So basically your particular articles which we shared from the newspaper, they were not talking about Places of Worship Act 1991, but more or less they were just talking about a political news around it, that was the Sambal issue. But from UPSC perspective, as a UPSC aspirant, your task was to cover the broader perspective from which UPSC can expect, you can expect a question from UPSC in your upcoming mains. Whenever you find any topic which is relevant from your syllabus of UPSC there in newspaper, it is your duty as an aspirant to cover that particular topic then and there very comprehensively. Now how do you go about that? Do not rely on what is just there in the news, but if you have got a context around it, please try to build up on that context using your Google and using your class notes and your own knowledge. So when you talk about this particular topic, Places of Worship Act, the comprehensive coverage of this particular topic can be done in this way, that you will talk about what is this Places of Worship Act 1991, what are the various sections of this particular act. This is a very important point, because here you will understand what are those nitties and integrities basically which are important from this particular act. While discussing this particular act, you will also come across another act, which is Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958. We will also understand this particular act in brief. Then you will talk about, then you will also understand what was Supreme Court's instance on Places of Worship Act in Ram Janmabhoomi case. Basically this was the case which led to the birth of Places of Worship Act 1991. Finally, we will also discuss various challenges to Places of Worship Act 1991, and then we will talk about way forward, that if this act was there, there may be certain objective behind it. If there are challenges, then what is the way forward? Now what is this Places of Worship Act 1991? Basically Places of Worship Act 1991, it was enacted following claims by Hindu groups. Regarding what? These Hindu groups, they were protesting against Gyanvapi Mosque in Varanasi and Shahi Eidgah Mosque in Mathura, in addition to obviously this Babri Masjid dispute. Now what was this act? This act basically prohibited conversion of any place of worship and to provide for the maintenance of religious character. Mind my words, these are some very important words which we will be discussing in this article in the upcoming minutes. That this act, it prohibited conversion of any place of worship and maintenance of the religious character of that particular place of worship as it existed on 15th August 1948, the day India got independence, and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. So it basically prohibited that we won't convert any place of worship and we will maintain its religious character as it existed on the day of our independence. So it was prohibiting conversion and it was maintaining the religious character. Now what was the long-term goal, long-term idea behind this Places of Worship Act 1991? Its idea was that we will try to avoid more contestations between communities on such religious issues, as well as we will maintain and we will preserve the communal harmony in long-term India. But irony was that the basic objective with which this particular act was designed, this particular act could not maintain that communal harmony in the country. Instead, it even provoked more communal issues, as we are seeing in the case of Ayodhya, Gyanvapi Mosque, we are seeing in the case of some Mathura Mosque, Varanasi Mosque, and now this Sambal issue. Going forward, if we look at the timeline of Places of Worship Act, then you will see that, as I discussed, 1991 was the time when this particular act was enacted. It said that religious character of a place of worship will remain as it was on 15th August 1947. Then October 2020, what happened? First petition was filed challenging this particular act. 5 more were filed subsequently on grounds of basically arbitrariness on date and the fact that it just takes away judicial review. When I will be talking about challenges of Places of Worship Act in my subsequent slides, I will be discussing all these things, because these are certain things. When a petition was there in the Supreme Court regarding a provision of this Places of Worship Act 1991, that shows that there are certain challenges to this Places of Worship Act which needs to be overcome. In August 21, what happened? 5 women, they filed suit in Varanasi seeking permission to pray at Gyanvapi Mosque. May 2022, after this case reached Supreme Court, then CJI D.Y. Chandrachud, he orally observed that a survey may not necessarily fall foul of the Places of Worship Act. Then in 2022-2024, 6 more suits were filed claiming the past existence of a Hindu temple. Then in December 2024, Supreme Court barred further survey orders, and that this is how this particular issue has popped up since its birth in 1991 to present day. Now, when we talk about Places of Worship Act, another very important aspect of this particular act is its various sections that we should talk about. Basically, the very first section, which is very important from exam perspective, is section 2. It talks about various definitions. Now, what definition? Basically, section 2 defines places of worship. It means a temple, a mosque, a church, a monastery, Gurudwara, or any other place of worship, religious worship of any religious denomination or any other section thereby, like a sect, by whatever name called. So section 2 is basically giving you definitions of various places of worship, that what all are places of worship that we are covering. Next is section 3. Section 3 basically talks about bar on the conversion, which was the major aim of this Places of Worship Act 1991, that no one is allowed to basically convert any place of worship of any religious denomination or any section into any other place of worship as it existed on 15th August 1947. This was all about section 3. Next we discuss section 4, which is one of the most important section of this particular act. Section 4 basically talks about that we will maintain, as I talked about in my previous slide, religious character, right? That whatever is the religious character of any place of worship, it will be maintained as it is without any modification in that. So as it was the religious character on 15th August 1947, we have to maintain it. But the section 4 subclause 2, it came up with another argument which we will discuss later also, that how it became a bone of contention. What it said, that on the commencement of this act, any suit, appeal or any other proceedings with respect to conversion of religious character of any place of worship existing on the 15th August of 1947, any suit, appeal or other proceeding with respect to conversion of religious character of any place of worship as it existed on 15th August 1947, if it is pending before any court, tribunal or any other authority, then the same will follow. If it is pending before any tribunal, court or any other authority, then the same shall abate, and no suit, appeal or other proceedings with respect to any such matter shall lie on or after commencement in any court. That means that after 15th August, no fresh suit or appeal can be filed in any court, tribunal or you say any authority. That is what we were talking about while we discussed the previous slide, and when it was talking about judicial review, that it takes away judicial review, and this we will discuss in a later slide also. See, whenever you cover any particular topic, please try to interconnect various parts very smartly. When you are framing your notes from mains perspective, just try to do in chitbits format in such a way that you can recollect those key terms, those key ideas, those reflections to your examination hall. Then you will definitely build up a narrative around it if you understood the topic by heart. in such topics, though they seem to be little factual because we are discussing various sections of a particular act, but if you understand the chronology, the various instances at which those sections were provoked in your society, you will get a very good idea behind it, and then you just need to make your hold on various keywords. When we talk about section 4 clause 3, this is one of the important section 4 clause 3. Why it is important? Because it talks about various exceptions. What exceptions? That what all does not fall under the purview of Places of Worship Act 1991. What it says, that any place of worship which is referred to as ancient and historical document or a archaeological site, or it remains covered by Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958, that is not a part of this particular Places of Worship Act, so it is exempt from this. Also, if as we talked about this section 3 subclause 2, if some of those disputes they have been decided or settled or disposed by any particular court or tribunal, they also are not a part of Places of Worship Act. If some of the disputes have been mutually settled by certain parties, they are also exempt from Places of Worship Act 1991. So section 4 subclause 3 was talking about certain exemptions. This will also become a challenge. This has also become a challenge in past few years, as we will see in our further discussion. When we talk about section 5, section 5 talks about another exemption, and this is where the birth of Places of Worship Act 1991 was taken. Basically, section 5 says that this particular act does not apply to Ram Janmabhoomi case of Ayodhya. That is what was the reason why this Places of Worship Act was born, because of Ram Janmabhoomi case. So section 5 specifically explicitly talked about that it does not apply to Ram Janmabhoomi case of Ayodhya. Section 6 of this particular act was talking about various punishments, that the punishment if somebody tries to convert any particular place of worship, or you try to change the religious character of any place of worship, then you may be punished up to a term of 3 years also. So these sections, now you might be thinking, why so factual knowledge is important for exam perspective? See, till the time you are not having a basic idea about the intricacies of any particular topic, you will not be able to replicate there in examination hall. UPSC may not be asking you explicitly about various sections of Places of Worship Act 1991, but till the time you don't have a background knowledge with you, it will be difficult to replicate the desired information in your examination. Now, when we also talked about this Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites Remains Act. Basically, it was an act for the preservation of archaeological sites, monuments, and other for the protection of sculptures, or you say carvings, and other objects. So this was taken up, this was brought up so that various archaeological sites, monuments, and other things can be preserved. So whatever fall inside it was also kept exempt from the Places of Worship Act 1991. Next, basically Supreme Court made a remark on prevention of this Places of Worship Act in Ram Janmabhoomi case. And that remark is very important to be understood from a UPSC aspirant perspective. Now, what did Supreme Court say in this particular case? Supreme Court said that the law addresses itself to the state as well as to the citizen itself. That whatever is the law, it is addressing to both the citizen as well as to the state. Its norm bind those who govern the state of affairs in the country at any level. So what did Supreme Court said? That its norm bind those who are governing the country. So it was talking about the government. The Supreme Court also said that the state, by enacting the law, it is basically enforcing constitutional commitment and constitutional obligations. Why so? Because we are trying to maintain equality of all religions, as well as our focus is on secularism, which is a part of basic structure of the constitutions. Supreme Court also made a very good remark when it said that historical wrongs cannot be corrected by people taking law into their own hands, and that is why the need for a law by the government. That historical wrongs cannot be corrected by people taking law in their own hands in preserving the character of places of worship. Finally, what Supreme Court held, that Parliament determined that independence from colonial rule, it furnishes a constitutional basis for healing the injustice of the past. That whatever law the Parliament has come up with, it will try to heal the injustices of the past British government. So these were the remarks of the Supreme Court on Places of Worship Act 1991 in Ram Janmabhoomi case, which led to the birth of Places of Worship Act. Next, if we discuss the various challenges to Places of Worship Act 1991, this is one of the most important slide. Why so? Because definitely there might be certain challenges to Places of Worship Act. That is why it has been in news repeatedly, right? So the first challenge that comes to Places of Worship Act 1991 is that the term religious character, which I was talking about in my previous slides also, this term is nowhere clearly defined, that what is the religious character. Basically what happens is, for example, there is a mosque or there is a temple, its religious character should be clearly defined for the people also. What is happening is, in Gyanvapi mosque, this Shringar Gauri, it was worshipped till 1992. Last year also Supreme Court allowed it. So basically what is happening, Shringar Gauri is also worshipped in this Gyanvapi mosque, and it is also for the other community Muslims. So this term religious character, this is nowhere clearly defined. If we clearly define the religious character of any place of worship, there won't be any controversy. When we are talking about that the remains of any particular temple were found behind any mosque, so the fault lies in the unclear definition of religious character. Second challenge is with regard to Article 14. Article 14 talks about equality before law and equal protection of law. So when we talk about equality before law and equal protection of law, we also talk about doctrine of reasonable classification. Now what does this doctrine of reasonable classification talks about? That whenever we are giving any particular advantage to any particular place or community, there should be a reason behind it. Now you are saying that on 15th August 1947, whatever was the condition or whatever was the status of any place of worship with respect to any particular religious character, it has been seized. But why discrimination of this particular date? Why we have put this as cutoff date? What is the reasonable classification behind that? Third challenge is with respect to right to access justice. As I talked about in my previous slides also, that right to access justice has been denied. Why so? Because it was talking under section 4 now, that you cannot go back to any court or any particular suit or file can be filed in any court or tribunal if you are challenging the status as it was on 15th August 1947. So it has been kept out of judicial review. That is what we saw in the timeline also. So this is another challenge. Fourth challenge is violation of Article 25 and 26, that is my right to religion. For example, there are two communities, Hindu and temple. Both are claiming to worship in a mosque or in a temple. It is their right to worship there. So why their basic rights are being violated? Because they are not getting the right to worship at a particular monument or at a particular place just because its religious character is not clearly defined. So this is another major challenge, that it is violative of Article 25 and 26, that is fundamental right of a citizen is being violated. Final challenge, which is a very big challenge, is with respect to section 4 subclause 3. Now what we saw in section 4 subclause 3, that there were certain exemptions from this Places of Worship Act 1991. Now what is happening is, when some sites have been exempted from there, now what people are doing, they are asking for surveys of those particular sites. When Archaeological Survey of India will be doing a survey, it will again fall under the purview of certain exempted sites, and that is what is happening. So this is again leading to clashes. So this is another issue, that since that classification is not very watertight, so more and more surveys is leading to addition of more sites into exempted sites. So these are certain challenges with respect to prevention of this Places of Worship Act 1991. If we talk specific to basically this Sambal case, so this petition filed in Sambal case, it seeks to change the basic structure of places of worship, which is in contravention to Places of Worship Act 1991. The petitioners of the Sambal case, they quote the oral observation of Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, who in basically 2022, he said that ascertainment of, this we also read in a timeline slide, that ascertainment of a religious character of any place of worship as a procedural instrument, ascertainment of religious character of any place of worship as a procedural instrument may not necessarily fall foul of the various sections of this particular act. So basically this way he opened the door for judiciary for wider interpretation of Places of Worship Act. What he said, that it is not necessary that various sections and interpretations of this particular Places of Worship Act 1991 are necessary to be followed while deciding the religious character of any place of worship. That meant that the doors are open for judiciary to interpret Places of Worship Act in a more broader manner. Now, when we talk about various challenges and various things that we have already covered, we should also see that what is the way forward, that such issues are not too much in relevance, and we come to a good solution. Basically, this issue is more social than political or legal. It needs a very inclusive approach. Why so? Because courts will give their decisions on whatever issue that comes up. But the point is, it is for the public to understand, it is for the two communities to come to a understanding that they both become a party to the agreement. Otherwise, we saw that in the post Ram Janmabhoomi case also, there were various issues that were brewing up. So this is not just a legal issue or a political issue. This cannot be solved by a certain law that will be put up by the legislature and approved by the judiciary or something like that. But it is an inclusive approach. The main point that should be followed here is the philosophy of Sarv Dharma Sambhava, and this is also the spirit of our Indian constitution. So that all the religions, Sarv Dharma Sambhava, all the religions are possible and all the religions should come to a single table, and we should respect the philosophy of secularism, and that is what is the spirit behind our Indian constitution, and that is how we see the way forward in the long term. Finally, we also have a practice question for you. This practice question is talking about discuss the role of legislative frameworks like Places of Worship Special Provisions Act 1991 in promoting secularism and maintaining communal harmony in India. Highlight the challenges in its implementation. This you are supposed to write in 150 words under 10 marks. We would appreciate if you can write such answers and post your answer as a PDF or as an image in your comments so that your peers can give you a good feedback over it. That's all about this article. Coming on to the next article, which talks about Indian diaspora. This article says that President Mormu is saying Indian diaspora is integral to the vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047. Now, why this topic of Indian diaspora was in news recently? It was because of the recently held Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, which was held from 8th to 10th January in Bhubaneswar, Odisha. The theme of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas was Diaspora's contribution to a Viksit Bharat. Basically, she stated that Indian diaspora shares an eternal bond with their homeland. She also added on to say that entrepreneurship, knowledge sharing and philanthropy, these are three things by Indian diaspora which are very crucial to a country like India. Further, she added on by saying that whatever is the vision of Viksit Bharat, it aligns with their global stature, particularly Indian diaspora being the voice of global South. It also encompasses with a never-ending theme of Vasudev Kutumbakam, that is, the world is a one family. So basically, she wanted to convey the message that Indian diaspora have spread that positive image of India across the globe, that their entrepreneurship, their knowledge sharing, their philanthropy, they are a very crucial resource towards the aim of Viksit Bharat. This particular topic of Indian diaspora, it is very relevant from your GS2 international relations topic under the subhead Indian diaspora. We have some previous year questions which were asked from the topic of Indian diaspora in UPSC mains. The first question, this was asked in mains 2020. It says Indian diaspora has a decisive role to play in the politics and economy of America and European countries. So here you will be talking about political and economic impact of Indian diaspora in America and European countries. This was the question that was asked in 2022. Next question was asked recently in 2023. Here it said Indian diaspora has scaled new heights in the West. Describe its economic and political benefits for India. So whenever you are covering the topic of Indian diaspora, try to see which country or which region of the world is having maximum percentage of Indian diaspora. I will be telling in the upcoming slides that which regions of the world host maximum Indian diaspora. Next, as I told you in my previous in my previous topic also, that whenever you are covering any particular topic from the newspaper, see the broader perspective of that and cover that topic very comprehensively from your mains perspective. To cover the topic of Indian diaspora from mains perspective, you should look for these particular things. First thing that should come to your mind is, actually we are talking about Indian diaspora, but who actually is this diaspora? Is there any division on this diaspora? NRIs, OCIs, something like that. So who is a diaspora? Next, you should talk about current status of Indian diaspora across the globe, which I was talking about. Like these questions, these previous year questions which you saw. Earlier UPSC asked about America and European countries. After 3 years it asked about West. So basically again it repeated America, but the point is you have to see various regions of the world where Indian diaspora is very prominent. Third, you should talk about, very briefly, you should also know about the evolving diaspora policy of India. This may not be true that since our independence, we are all the same with respect to our policies for diaspora. We might have evolved in our policies. So what is that evolution? Fourth, this is the most important aspect of our discussion. What is the significance of Indian diaspora? Fifth, challenges of Indian diaspora for India. Because if they are significant, if there are pros, so there are cons also, because it is just like two sides of a coin. Next, you should talk about government measures, the measures that government takes to protect, to secure, to benefit its diaspora. And seventh, if there are certain challenges, then what is the way forward? We should start our discussion with the topic, who is a diaspora? Indian diaspora, or you say Bharatvanshi, it is a generic term which is used for addressing people who migrate from the territories which are within the borders of the Republic of India and they settle in some other countries. Under the term diaspora, we further have a classification of NRIs and OCIs. Who are NRIs? NRIs are non-resident Indians. They are Indian citizens who reside outside India for 182 days in a year. But they still maintain very strong ties to their homeland. Who are overseas citizens of India? Overseas citizenship of India is like a permanent residency which is given to these Indians and their spouses, and they can basically live and work freely in India if they are getting a OCI status, right? So this was a further small brief classification. Next, if we talk about the current status of Indian diaspora, according to a recent UN report, what was the report? International Migration 2020 Highlights. This report was published by UNDESA. The report highlighted that the countries which are having the largest diaspora, India tops in that. This is the data of 2020. And India is followed by Mexico, which is further followed by Russia. Now if we talk about that, India is having the largest diaspora, but who constitutes the largest diaspora? If so many Indians are migrating from this particular country to other countries, to which country are we migrating the most? So the number is topped by UAE, followed by USA, and at third, Saudi Arabia. This data is also given by this particular report, right? So you will see in this map also that basically UAE tops the list with 34 lakhs, followed by USA. This is basically data given, this is updated data. The the data that I was talking about was from the 2020 report, but this is a data given by Ministry of External Affairs as of 2021. So you will see here which countries constitute the maximum Indian diaspora, where do we migrate the most. Next, if we talk about the evolving diaspora policy of India, basically this is a brief timeline to understand that how did our diaspora policy evolve since independence. The first thing that should come to our mind is pre-independence and early post-independence era of 1947 to 1960s. Basically this was the time when India did not focus much on its diaspora. Why so? Because we got independence after a very long colonization period and we were more concerned on our domestic issues. Next, we will talk about consolidation and global recognition of 1970s to 1980s. Basically, this was the phase when India started looking at political and economic recognition of its diaspora, especially in the communities like Middle East and Southeast Asia. Third was a very important era. This was the era of 1990s to 2000s. This was the era of reform and diaspora diplomacy. Basically, this was the era of LPG reforms. And this was the time when we started paying more attention to Indian diaspora, and as a result of this, in 2003, Pravasi Bharatiya Divas was also established. Then we came to strategic engagement and soft power. This was the era of, you can also say, India-US civil nuclear deals, 2008. Basically, this was the time when we started focusing more on our Indian diaspora in countries like US, UK and so on. Finally, recent developments and future outlook. This is the time when we are more focused on digital diaspora. What is that? That we are engaging with our global diaspora through technology by creating an interconnected online community. This is the era when the country feel the need, this diaspora sitting back across the borders, they help their host country online. So this is the era when we are getting too much of remittances, when we are when we are developing great focus on our diaspora abroad. Next, if we talk about the significance part, basically Indian diaspora has been of immense significance for a country like India. The first significance that comes to our mind is economic powerhouse. Now, under economic powerhouse, we will talk about remittances. We will also talk about employment. And we will further talk about entrepreneurship. So, these are the three things that we will be discussing under the head of economic powerhouse. What is remittances? Basically, India received an estimated $129 billion worth remittances in 2024, which was largest ever by any country, and this constitutes around 14.3% of the world remittances. So you can see the power, you can imagine the power of Indian diaspora, that Indian diaspora sent back 14.3% of the global remittances that were sent by the entire diaspora community of the world. Then employment, basically low skilled wage labor, it went more to Middle East. So this to an extent solved the problem of unemployment in India. Further, if we talk about entrepreneurship, then we have various examples. Like the perfect example that comes to our mind is Dr. Vinod Khosla. Basically, investment by these particular venture capitalists, it helped India even in resolving the balance of payment crisis. Plus, he has funded in various defense startups, right? So, entrepreneurship has been another area where Indian diaspora has taken a lead. Next, if we talk about political clout, this is basically self-explanatory point that Indians, they have held very high positions across the globe. The perfect example that comes to our mind is Rishi Sunak, former UK Prime Minister. Then we have Kamala Harris, former US Vice President. Then we also have Usha Vance, wife of the current Vice President of USA. So basically various political positions have been held by Indian diaspora, which adds to our image, which strengthens our image, our voice at the global platform. Third is they act as bridge builders. Now what is bridge builders? We can also say they are cultural ambassadors, or you can say Rashtraduts. Indian diaspora, they have been spreading India's culture across the globe. The first example that comes to our mind in this context is of Deepak Chopra. He is related to the field of wellness and spirituality, and he is famous for integrating Eastern philosophy with that of Western practices, right? So he is famous for a blend of spirituality and wellness through Eastern practices and Western practices. Another cultural ambassadors, if we talk about, then second we can talk about Zubin Mehta. He is a very famous Western classical dancer, and basically he is famous for spreading the classical music, classical cultural richness of India across globe. So he is famous for his Western classical music. Then we can also talk about Tara Stiles. She is basically a yoga practitioner. She is a yoga instructor and wellness advocate, and she has also spread India's yoga philosophy across the globe. So these are some of the Rashtraduts, or you can say cultural ambassadors. Then next we also talk about knowledge ambassadors. We have the example of, the first name that comes to our mind is Indira Nooyi. You have endless list here. Then we have example of Sundar Pichai. Then you have example of Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO. She was CEO of PepsiCo. Basically they have been spreading India's culture, India's richness, India's knowledge across the world, and henceforth we call them knowledge ambassadors. Finally, we can also talk about two more significance. Fifth is diaspora diplomacy. This was very prominently evident through the usage of soft power by activist Swadesh Chatterjee, who played a very crucial role in 2008 India-US civil nuclear deal. So basically the uses of soft power by Indian diaspora, which led to diaspora diplomacy, is another significant perspective from this diaspora side. Last is philanthropy. Basically there have been various philanthropists, like we have the example of Chopra Foundation, who have been working in various healthcare and other education sectors across the India for the underprivileged society, underprivileged section of the society. So various Indian diaspora people, they have also been a great philanthropist, and this philanthropist is one of the three aspects that were talked by President Murmu in her address, that it is knowledge sharing, it is philanthropy, and it is their entrepreneurship. The three key pillars which are very crucial for a country like India. So these ways we highlighted the significance of India's diaspora in the prospect of Viksit Bharat. Next, if we talk about the challenges of Indian diaspora for India, the first challenge that comes to our mind is brain drain. Why is this a big challenge? Basically, according to Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of External Affairs, around 1.5 million students are studying internationally, and the pain point is that majority of them, or most of them, want to settle back overseas. So brain drain is a big concern for a country like India. Next, we have economic concerns. See, because of reverse migration, we often see a decline in remittances. Then basically global slowdowns and various protectionist measures, like they were taken in the past by USA in the form of H1B visa and all. They limit job opportunities for Indian professionals. Then another point is limited political participation. This is another concern. Why so? Because navigating the complex voting procedures and residency requirements, these things restrict the voting practices by Indian diaspora in their host country, for example India. Safety and security, basically we have seen in the past also, like the unstable region of West Asia, Middle East, they often pose big challenge to the safety and security of Indian diaspora in those countries, when we have seen Indian government stood up to the challenge and we provided them with all the help that was possible so that things can be settled down on time. Exploitative labor practices, basically we have certain examples like kafala and nitakat in West Asia. These are certain practices which restrict labor movement. So exploitative labor practices are another challenge. Then we have diaspora unity. What is diaspora disunity? Basically, lot of diaspora is scattered in various parts of a country. So even they don't know what their common challenges are. For example, we saw in the past also some section of the Canada, some people, some Indian diaspora people in Canada or in America, they raised pro-Khalistani slogans, or they basically made some donations or some efforts for this Khalistan movement, which is basically a big challenge for a country like India. So diaspora disunity is another concern for India. Why so? Because these anti-national elements, they may pose a challenge, or they may trap these Indian diaspora for their malicious targets. Then what are the government measures that have been taken with regard to these particular things? The first government measure that comes to picture is diaspora outreach events. The first event is Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Award. This is basically the highest honor conferred to a non-resident Indian, person of Indian origin, or an organization or institution. So India awards, like recently our President Murmu, she gave 27 awards. Next we should talk about institutional mechanism. So basically Ministry of External Affairs, it has instituted a separate wing dedicated Overseas Indian Affairs Division, Overseas Indian Affairs Division, to manage diaspora related policies and concerns. Overseas Indians Affairs Division by Ministry of External Affairs. Then we have various legal and policy measures. What are those legal and policy measures? The first thing is OCI card. As I explained in my previous slide also, when I was talking about who is a diaspora, that the people who get this OCI card, they're free to travel and work in a country, in our country. Second thing that comes to our mind is e-migrate system. It is a platform to streamline and regulate the services, employment opportunities for our youth outside. E-migrate system. Fourth thing is welfare and support initiatives. See, we have Madad portal here. Then we have this Indian Community Welfare Fund. These are some of the initiatives for the welfare and support to our diaspora outside, that if they are in need, we will be there for them. Economic engagement, this we are doing through Invest India program. We basically promote our diaspora to invest in Indian companies, to invest in Indian startups, Invest India program. Then cultural and education initiatives, we have No Bharat program, No India program, so that our diaspora is in link with it, is very well linked with the cultural heritage of the country, and the things are in sync. Addressing labor and workers concerned, basically this we sometimes do through this Pravasi Bharat Bima Yojana. We also try to do this through the reforms in E-Migration Act 1983. Then rescue and repatriation missions, we saw Operation Rahat, we saw Operation Vande Bharat. When there was a trouble in the West Asia, Indian government stood up to the challenge and we evacuated our Indians from there in no time by taking every possible measures. So these rescue and repatriation missions have been taken by the government time to time whenever there was a need for the same. Finally, if we have to talk about way forward, that what is the way forward, how can we basically tackle the issues that are being faced by Indian diaspora abroad. The first thing is enhance user friendly platforms. That these mother portal, as I talked about, we should enhance working on more such portals so that the right help can be given to Indian diaspora at the right time. Whenever there is a need, we should be their well-wisher. They should rely back on their host country. Promote skill development program, so that whenever there is a employment opportunity in some part of the country and our labor is going there to work, for example West Asia or some other countries, as we are famous for providing labor to majority of the part of the world. So basically that particular labor should be well skilled and in fine tune with the demand of the host country. Building bridges. How building bridges? Basically, the Indian government should strengthen its partnership with other countries so that the right help at the right time, right steps, right measures can be taken, and our community in the other country is safe, is psychologically safe, that yes, we are at the right place, and if anything negative happens here, we will get the right help from our own country. Connecting roots, that the certain events should be organized from time to time so that the cultural heritage of India should be well maintained in the mind of our diaspora, so that, because as President Murmu said, that their bond with the homeland is eternal. So that bond is not just economic, not just social, not just political, but also cultural. Streamlined services, that whatever help we are providing them, whatever concerns we are raising for them, whatever this skill enhancement facilities we are giving to them, those services should be streamlined, should be easily accessible for our Indian diaspora. So these were certain ways in which Indian government can provide a way forward for the diaspora, which constitutes a major basically part of our economic system, by providing, as I told you, $129 billion of remittances in 2024, which was 14.3% of the global remittances. So this was all about this topic. Covered this topic very comprehensively from mains perspective, and this is a prelims question that we are giving for practice. It would be nice, we would be happy to see that if you comment the answer in the comment box, and let's see if more people can comment and we get the right answer there. Now the question says, which of the following statements are correct regarding the Indian diaspora and global migration patterns? The Indian diaspora is the largest with a strong presence in Middle East, North America and Europe. UNDESA notes India's migration is influenced by political and economic factors. The World Migration Report highlights India's immigration is highly skilled, focused on knowledge workers. India is both a source of migrants and a destination with inflows from neighboring countries. Select the correct answer from using the given code. So we would be waiting for your response in the comment section. That's all about this article. Thank you. And the next article talks about coal mining in Assam. Basically, this was in news. Why? Because in Assam's Dima Hasao district, 9 workers were trapped in a flooded coal rat hole mine. Now, this particular topic is very important from your UPSC mains perspective under GS3 disaster management, plus prelims perspective under the topic of mining, coal reserves in India and so on. So let's understand this topic in brief. What is mining? Mining is basically extraction of minerals. When we talk about the profitability of mining, it hinges on 2 factors. One is physical factors, other one is economic factors. The physical factors are like grading, occurrence mode and deposit size of coal. Economic factors are like transportation cost, you can see technologies there. We can talk about other infrastructure, labor, mineral demand in market and so on. Basically, these are some topics which you should prepare very comprehensively from your prelims perspective, right? I will try to give you a basic idea that what all needs to be done from a particular article from your prelims perspective. Now, next, if we talk about the types of mining, there are many types of mining like underground mining, you can say placer mining, you can say surface or even we call it open pit mining, we have rat hole mining and so on. The major point, the bone of contention before us is rat hole mining. Why? Because this is the reason why this Assam thing was in news. Next, if we focus on rat hole mining. Now, what is rat hole mining? Rat hole mining is basically creating small tunnels, or you say like rat holes, small tunnels or rat holes which are 3 to 4 feet high. And these tunnels are created to extract coals. The major issue with this rat hole mining is that people enter into these rat hole mining, not people, basically it is small children. they enter into these red hole mines to extract coals without any safety gears. It is totally hazardous for them, and this is the reason why its legal status is that in 2014 National Green Tribunal NGT, it basically declared this red hole mining illegal. This red hole mining is very prominent in northeastern India, mainly Assam and Meghalaya. Now when we talk about the consequences part of red hole mining, the first consequence of red hole mining is that water and soil contamination. Second is child trafficking. This is again a big social issue. Why child trafficking? Because these mines, these tunnels are 3 to 4 feet high, as I already explained. So mostly children enter into these mines. So it leads to more and more child trafficking. Third is constant risk of flooding. And this is what happened in Assam. So these are some of the major consequences of red hole mining, because of which NGT declared it illegal way back in 2014. Now when we are talking about the mining thing, we should also briefly cover the coal sector. What is coal? Its reserves, types of coal, where do India import coal from, the scenario in coal import, has it decreased or year by year is it increasing? So try to prepare a topic very comprehensively from your prelims perspective whenever you find an article in your newspaper. So this particular map, it shows coal reserves in India. Now what is coal? Coal is basically a readily combustible black or brownish sedimentary rock, predominantly made of carbon. And what is the precursor of rock? It was peat, which is soft organic material. Odisha, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. If we talk about the distribution of coal in India, Odisha, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, they three comprises of 69% of the reserves of coal in India. Next, if we briefly talk about the types of coal, we have 4 varieties: anthracite, then you have bituminous, then we have lignite and the peat. Based on carbon content, we divide coal into these 4 types. Anthracite is the best quality coal, which is found in very least amount in India. Lignite and peat, bituminous second best, lignite third, and peat is the worst one. So this is the sequence of their quality also, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So these were the types of coal. So whenever you come across any such article, cover it from your mains perspective or disaster management, plus from your prelims perspective. You will find many of the questions have been asked from mining, especially the coal sector, in your prelims. Now we have also given you a practice question, and we would welcome if you comment the answer in this comment box and make it a general habit. Whenever you get a question from us, try to attempt it. No issues even if you mark it wrong. Red hole mining, prevalent in Meghalaya, is a method of extracting coal that poses significant environmental and safety hazards. Which of the following statement regarding red hole mining is correct? I explained red hole mining in detail. It involves digging narrow tunnels on hill slopes to extract coal. It is a regulated mining practice with proper safety measures. The NGT banned red hole mining in Meghalaya in 2014. So now, based on what I explained, I hope it will be a very cakewalk kind of a question for you. So, looking forward to your answers in comment section. The next article is about rupee depreciation. The article talks about that the rupee falls further, just shy of 86 per dollar mark. We have seen that since the news of Trump coming to power, dollar has been strengthened to another level and Indian rupee is falling by every passing day. This particular topic is very relevant for our mains GS3 Indian economy, as well as for your prelims part, where we will be talking about inflation, rupee appreciation, depreciation and other things. Now basically, what is exchange rate? Exchange rate is the rate at which one currency will be exchanged for another currency, and it affects trade and movement of money between countries. For example, we are dealing in rupees, US is dealing in dollar. How many rupees do we need to give to buy a same product in US through in dollars? That shows your exchange rate. For example, $1 is equals to 86 rupees. So my exchange rate is this with respect to US. This is a very strong sign to reflect the weakness or strength of a economy. It has a very strong impact on our trade with other nations also. Next, if we talk about rupee depreciation and appreciation. Now, what is rupee depreciation, or you say what is currency depreciation? Basically, whenever there is a fall in the value of our own currency, say rupee here, this is rupee depreciation. For example, maybe just take an example that 1 year ago, $1 was traded for 75 rupees. Today, it is being traded for 85 rupees, as we just saw. That shows that rupee has depreciated. You can understand it better in a way that, for example, you went to US and you went to US in 2023 and you bought a shoe worth $10. That shoe was of, for example, XYZ brand. You bought a shoe for $10 and you paid $10 there, which meant you spent 750 Indian rupees. Now your sister went there after a year, the same shoe was again costing same $10. But for example, this case is of today. Today she need to spend $10 only, but today for her $10 means 850 rupees, because $1 is 85 rupees today. This shows that there is a fall in her own currency. Appreciation is the opposite game. For example, earlier it was 75 rupees, today it is 65. So earlier she paid 75 rupees for that shoe, today she will be paying 65. The dollars are same, $10, but the value of rupee has appreciated. That is, our currency has got more strong, right? So basically rupee depreciation means that rupee has become less valuable with respect to other currencies. That is, we have to spend more rupees to buy dollars. Now, when we talk about the factors behind this rupee depreciation, the first factor that comes to your mind is trade deficit. Basically, when imports are more than exports, it increases the demand of US dollars to pay for imports, which further weakens the Indian rupee. After trade deficit, we will talk about inflation. Rising inflation in the domestic economy, it basically reduces the purchasing power of the rupee, that is our Indian currency, which makes Indian goods less competitive in global markets, further depreciating the rupee. Third, we can talk about capital outflows. If you invest in share market, you might be knowing that since last so many days, foreign investors are taking their money back from Indian markets. Why? Because they feel US is a better place to invest today. Why so? Because on 20th Trump is coming to power, so and US dollar is strengthening by another level. So they feel like US is a better economy, is a better place to invest. So when they are taking their money out, this capital outflow is further leading to leading to rupee depreciation. Fourth is strong US dollar. This is the most common thing that you can see these days, as US dollar is more and more strengthening by every passing day because of the news of various Trump, America's first policy and various other things that he proclaimed while campaigning. So because of Trump coming to power and certain other reasons, US dollar is strengthening by every passing day, which is leading to more depreciation or weakness of Indian currency. Then fifth is global factors like rising crude oil prices. They increase India's import bill, so that we have to spend more dollars to basically pay for these import bills. So these are certain factors which are behind rupee's depreciation. Now, when we talk about impact of rupee depreciation on Indian economy, we have positive as well as negative impacts. The first impact that comes to my mind regarding positive impact is boost export competitiveness. Since Indian rupee has fallen in its value, so that will make our products cheaper in the global market, so it will boost our exports. But basically this is of no advantage to India, because we are not export dependent country, we are more a import dependent country. We import much more than what we export, so even rupee depreciation is of not much use to us. Second is remittances. As I told in my previous topic also, that India got the remittances worth $129 billion in 2024, which was around 14.3% of the global remittances. So remittances sent by our diaspora, they are more in Indian value because rupee is depreciating. Third is imported goods. Import becomes very expensive. So how is this a positive thing for us? When imports are getting more expensive, it boosts our domestic production. So this is a boost to Make in India kind of initiatives. When imports have got more expensive, so we focus more on R&D and on internal production. Fourth is, it boosts tourism in India, because they can spend much more. For example, they're coming with $10, now they will get 850 rupees here. Earlier, if it was 75, they would have getting 75. So tourism, it gets a boost to tourism because tourism gets cheaper in India. When we talk about negative impact, the first negative impact is costlier imports. We are an import dependent nation, so we have to be more concerned about imports rather than exports. If we were export dependent country, it would have been very happy situation for us, even if the US was strengthening and rupee was weakening. Second thing is widening deficits. Basically, weakening rupee, it leads to more trade deficit. That is, imports are more and exports are less. So this deficit, because costlier imports contribute to higher trade deficit, which is a major problem for India. Then rising inflation. Weaker rupee often it will naturally lead to a inflation in the country. Fourth is tourism abroad. It becomes a difficult choice. Why so? Because we will have to spend much more. Earlier we would have taken 750 rupees with us, we would have got $10 there. Today we need 850 rupees. So tourism for us has become very costlier. For them it has become a boon. That was all basically about this topic. Now we are also giving you a practice question. We expect you to drop its answer in the comment section. With reference to Indian economy, consider the following statements. If the inflation is too high, RBI is likely to buy government securities. If the rupee is rapidly depreciating, RBI is likely to sell dollars. If interest rates in US or European Union were to fall, that is likely to induce RBI to buy dollars. Choose the correct code from these particular statements and drop your answer in the comment box. And the next article talks about the appointment procedure of Chief Election Commissioner of India. Basically, why it has been news? Because the selection process for the next Chief Election Commissioner is under process, and the traditional procedure which was being followed for the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner was that the senior most EC Election Commissioner used to be appointed as CEC. But now, because of a new act, this process has changed. Now, where is the relevance of this particular article in the UPSC syllabus? It is very important for your prelims perspective under Constitutional Bodies Directive and also in your GS2 part of polity under Constitutional Bodies. Chief Election Commissioner. Basically, Election Commission is an autonomous constitutional body which is responsible for regulating union as well as state elections. It conducts election for Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state legislative assemblies, and to the office of President and Vice President. Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, State Legislative Assembly, President as well as Vice President. Article 324 to 329. Article 324 to 329 of the Indian Constitution, they talks about various procedure regarding the election process in India. And Article 324, to be very precise, it talks about the superintendents and the powers to be regulated in an election commission. Article 324. Now, what is the structure of election commission? Structure of election commission. Originally, it was a single member body, but post its amendment in 1989, it was made a multi-member body. See, whenever you are covering such a topic from prelims perspective, it is very important for you to know the basic factual details very clearly, because UPSC may play with a small word and the entire question will go wrong. When you are covering this particular topic from mains perspective, you have to go into the powers and challenges with respect to the functions of Election Commission of India. So, 1989 amendment made it a multi-member body. The current scenario is it is a 3-member body. One is CEC plus 2 election commissioners. Right. At the state level, this election commission is being held by Chief Electoral Officer. Who? Chief Electoral Officer, who is a IAS rank officer. This is again a very important point that you should keep in mind from your prelims perspective. UPSC can play with you that it will give you 4 statements, 3 may be very directly from a standard source that you have covered. In the fourth statement, it will talk about that at the state level, who helps Election Commission of India. There you should be always ready with such things. So whenever you're getting an article on such topic, just prepare it very comprehensively. So the traditional procedure to appoint a chief election commissioner used to be that the senior most election commissioner, he used to be promoted to the rank of chief election commissioner. But this chief election commissioner, now read this act nicely, chief election commissioner and other election commissioner appointment, condition of service and term of office Act 2023. It has changed the entire process. How it has changed the entire process? It has said that no, the senior most election commissioner will not be appointed, but there will be a fair selection process. Now what is this selection process? Now just understand two committees very nicely. One will be search committee that I will be talking about, another one will be selection committee. This search committee will be headed by law minister. Okay, so Ministry of Law will set up a search committee and it will shortlist or finalize 5 names and will hand over those 5 names to a selection committee who will choose one member out of those 5 as India's CEC. Right? So this was my search committee. But what is this selection committee? This selection committee comprises of 3 members. One is our Prime Minister, another is a cabinet minister, and third is the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha. Right? So these 3 members will shortlist one name from those 5 that were given by the search committee headed by Law Minister of India. Hope I make sense. Now these CEC and election commissioner, these are appointed by the president on the advice of Union Cabinet. Who appoints them? President. Their term is 6 years or at the age of 65, whichever is earlier. Now the best part about this new act is, what is that best part? That it has opened the doors for outsiders also. Think of a situation before this act, it was only the prerogative of those 2 election commissioners that either of them will be promoted as CEC. But now it has opened the doors for outsiders also, that it is not just those 2, but someone else who falls a part of this search committee headed by Law Minister, which will be made by Ministry of Law. So outsiders are also getting a chance to be a part of Chief Election Commissioner of India. Right? So basically election commissioners, they are not reappointed. If a election commissioner is being promoted to CEC, then he will remain in office only for the remainder term. Which term? Which I specified, either 6 years or till the age of 65. So these are some of the factual information which you should keep in mind from any of the emerging topic. Why this topic was very emerging? Because this new act came up in 2023. We have also given you a practice question. We would love to see your comments in the comment box. The question says, consider the following statements. Election Commission of India is a 5-member body. I hope it makes sense to you based on a short, crisp discussion that we had. Union Ministry of Home Affairs decides the election schedule for the conduct of both general and by-elections. Election Commission resolves the disputes relating to splits merger of recognized political parties. Basically, I did not discuss this point because then it would have taken long time to complete this issue, because if we deal with election commission as a topic, it is a very comprehensive topic where I would like to talk about its structure, its composition, its functions, its challenges, then what were some of the Supreme Court judgments in this regard. Then we would also talk about model code of conduct, we will talk about the EVM controversy and so on. So we just try to cover this topic in crisp from prelims perspective. But I request you all to cover this topic in much detail based on your own understanding. Thank you so much. See you in some other discussion.